Siumtan Kolisi will become the 9th Springbok Centurion of all time. Rassie Erasmus will coach the Springboks for the 50th time as the head coach. He had a brief period as DOR in the middle. He had a period as assistant coach. He had a period as a consultant. 50th time he's been head coach. This is fittingly for occasion for two of the greats, right? Possibly the greatest captain the game's ever seen, and one of the greatest coaches the game's ever seen, if not, he's in contention to be the, as we talked about last year.
Yeah.
One of the occasion for it. Possibly the most exciting game of the year.
Yeah.
France versus the Springboks.
This is the big matchup of the Autumn Internationals, isn't it? And this is the one game, if you look at all of the calendar, as you say, probably of the men's test calendar, this is probably the game you look at and you go, it feels so evenly matched, which is why we want to try and dig into it a little bit. The Six Nations champions against the Rugby Championship and World Cup champions.
Yes.
And obviously, there is the whole grudge around the 2023 World Cup quarter-final in there.
So Maxime Luku has said in the last week, and it's been mistranslated a couple of times, but he said that World Cup was ours and South Africa came and took it. Some people translate this as stole it. That was not what he was saying. He was saying, it was there, we wanted it, we felt like we had it, and South Africa came and took it from us. And he was he then said, what a game it was. It was one of the best games he's ever seen. Because he did sit on the bench for the whole thing. He had the best seat in the house for it.
Indeed.
But, yeah, it was... That first half was probably the best half of rugby I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And the second half was extremely, extremely good.
It was one of the best games of rugby I've seen in my life.
Yeah.
And
it might be
admittedly...
the best. I think it probably is the best.
That's it. And admittedly, we were cheering for France. So, the emotion was taken out of it at the end. And I think what Luku's trying to get at there is they went into that World Cup as favourites for many.
Yeah.
And it was the home World Cup. And they were on fire in that group stage. And then, South Africa did that thing that South Africa do better than any other rugby team, if not sports team, which is punch above their weight and get clutch last-minute victories, which, they won every game of the knockout stage by 1 point.
Also, critically, have a lot of weight.
Yes.
It was pure power and pure size, as well as pure determinism, right? When you match in the level of effort and the level of just bloody mindedness in that Springbok team with the level of power, it's almost unstoppable, no matter how you're playing. And I went back and had a look briefly at that quarter-final, which I've seen many times in the past, and also the last time they played in France before that, the year before, in Marseille. So the Springboks have won every game between the two in Paris since 2005, when France last beat them in Paris, but France did beat them in Marseille when they moved their games there for Olympic reasons a couple of years ago, in 2022. So this has been a reasonably even fixture, right? That game was decided by 3 or 4 points. This game has been, that game in the World Cup was decided by 1 point. These games have been tight, and they've been high scoring critically as well. In both of those cases, teams were getting up in the higher 20 points, but we were seeing early stages again. Both teams had flurries where they scored lots of tries, where the game really opened up in them. And I think we'll probably see something quite similar this weekend.
In high-intensity test rugby, that is an insane amount. This feels like a heavyweight boxing match, doesn't it?
It does.
At this point, these two pitted against each other because they feel like they're from slightly different worlds. And that translates a little bit to the style of play. Both of them have both power games and flared attacking games, but you can probably tell which one of them favours the other one of those two things.
So prior to Tony Brown coming in 2024, the Springboks had obviously, they'd started to, between 2019 and 2023, play 1-3-2-2.
Yep. They
started to play a faster brand of rugby, but they fell back on usually their power game, and that was their primary tactic. But they had a plan B, which was pacey rugby, which was using Villy the Roo an awful lot, which was having him basically play as a main fly half, right, and him run the attack, and then having the actual fly half stand out the back and just make odd decisions. If you look at that game in 2022, right, and that game in 2023, the last two times the Springboks have played, the two times under Rassie, where France have been up to this full power, and Razzie's been in charge against the, I know it was 9 of them, but you go with it. This coaching ticket, this kind of coaching ideal. The Springboks have played that fast game. They have gone, this is a game we need to play at pace, rather than we need to stop and slow them down, which is typically what you'd think teams want to do against France, who play incredibly fast rugby. Their ruck speed is second highest in terms of speed to Scotland, but a big part of that is the fact that they throw more offloads.
Yeah.
So the ball is in the air more, it's getting from one pair of hands to the next, they pass more. The ball is probably getting from point to point faster than any other team in the world, even though Scotland's ruck speed is higher in the men's game, and obviously, you've got a bunch of teams that are faster in the women's game. But it is a really exciting prospect because South Africa tend to think we've got to match them for speed, right? Because France are the only team in the world who can match the Springboks of power. Like, literally no one else can do that. And France have picked a huge pack.
Yeah. So one of the areas of focus, I think, this game has to go, you look at the front row, because you've got in there two quite inexperienced props at international level for France. You've got Baptiste Docho and Régis Montagne at tight head prop. So those two, they both played in the summer against New Zealand. They played 2 tests there. Montagne coming off the bench, Docho starting. Docho was one of those where he was hanging in at the scrums a little bit. He went after his man a little bit more than Montagne did. Montagne kind of stabilised the scrum a little bit. So it'll be quite interesting to see what happens there, because I think they're two kind of contrasting styles of scrummager. Whereas South Africa have brought back in Thomas du Toit, who is one of the best scrummagers in the world, one of the biggest just mountains of men in the world. And they've brought in Boan Venter of Edinburgh. So Venter has only played 55 minutes of rugby so far this season for Edinburgh at club level. But obviously that's on the back of the Rugby Championship, where he was getting pretty good game time. Against Georgia this summer, he played really well and managed to kind of beat down his opposition prop until eventually about half an hour in, he started winning scrum penalties. I think he's that kind of guy where I guess he'll shadow box against his opposite man until eventually he starts getting those big results against them. So I think that scrum battle is going to be so interesting. But you have to favour South Africa with that because of the experience of Thomas du Toit in particular.
So this is an interesting thing about Venter. I think he is incredibly rare in South African looseheads as a genre, because most of these players are conditioned to play short bursts. Venter is a player who will play for a long period of time. He played more minutes than any of the loosehead in the URC last season, I think the season before as well. And he is consistently left on the pitch until like 65 to 70 odd minutes by Edinburgh, right? And a part of that, you can ask, is it the depth, right? They just not have anyone who's as good as a tired Boan Venter, because he's an exceptional player and a brilliant scrummager. But consistently, he is left out on the pitch for long periods. And I think it's a really interesting thing that you bring him into the squad because you want him to start, right? And I can imagine, even if we didn't have an injury to Oxenshea, for example, you'd probably be starting him because it gives him a chance to kind of like wear people down, as you say, like that's his style of play. He's very attritional. He's kind of like, you mentioned a boxing analogy earlier, but like he's very much, he will throw 20 punches and wait for a knockout blow.
Definitely.
Right? Rather than going in for the kill initially. And I think he's a really interesting guy to be bringing in because he's not, he's a very old school South African prop, right?
Yeah.
He's not this new mould of people who are like all power, all action for 50 minutes, and they go for a long lie down and eat a slice of cake. Like, he is the old school model of, I will stay with you and I'll be nasty and you will hate me and I'll throw little punches into the side of your, your ribs and so on for 80 whole minutes. And you will be, he's very much like Oz Duran, right? Rather than, obviously they're built very differently. He's far more like kind of athletic build, but like he's that style of player in attitude, in mindset, I think, rather than an Oxenshea or even a Beast.
Big time. And I think actually it's just as interesting to talk about the men wearing the 17 and 18 jerseys alongside this. Whereas, so South Africa have gone for Gerard Steenkamp. We've talked him up a lot recently on this channel.
I think he has the potential to be one of the top 3 props in the world.
Yeah, and you've got Wilco Low, who has maybe been the form tight head in
men's rugby.
Men's rugby all year, whereas France have gone for Jean-Baptiste Gros, again, a huge bloke, like a big scrummager.
Had a brilliant Six Nations, incredibly athletic. Obviously got back once and covered a dropout. Just like can do it all, as a useful fullback as well.
Yes, very destructive presence he is. And Dorian Aldegheri, who is a bit more experienced, again, is somebody who will, I think, stabilise the scrum if they do end up going backwards in the first half.
Physically bigger lad.
Yeah.
Which is useful. So France have very much gone for their own bomb squad. They have gone 6-2. Razzie has sort of gone 6-2.
Yeah.
In that he's named a 5-3 bench, but one of the backs he's just said is a forward.
Yeah.
In the typical shithouse Razzie
with
manner.
Andre Esterhazen, who now covers both.
And did play there against Japan.
Yeah.
And was perfectly fine there. Perfectly good there.
And I think that might be a tactic moving forward, is he will name that 5-3, but actually use Esterhazen as a weapon to come off the bench in that Quokka Smith bomb squad back row role, where, he can kind of up those battle stats that Rossi so obsesses with all the time. So that's a really exciting thought, looking at the 2 benches. Now, the big change for France, I think, comes in the role of the quarterback. which is with Antoine Dupont sadly out injured for at least most of the autumn, if not all of it, with his ACL injury.
Yeah, he's due back in December.
Yeah, so he's been training but isn't back to full fitness yet. And instead of, and this is a bit of a toss-up in this one, instead of Maxime Lucu, who's been one of the form players in Europe all year, they have gone with...
the form scrum-half in the world for me all year.
He's been right up there for sure. And instead, they've opted for Nolan Le Garrec.
Yeah.
I have a theory on this, which is pretty much what you were saying earlier, that France are the sort of team, they like to demand their forwards to work off the ball constantly and to get so quickly into position and demand that really quick ruck speed. And as much as I think Maxime Lucu is a much better game manager than Le Garrec, and potentially that's a part of this, that they're saving that back, Le Garrec's pass is slightly quicker than Lucu's, and I think that might be it, that he's going to be firing these quick balls into these hard carriers. And it's quite risky because what I was about to say is they're going to try and tire out that Springbok pack by working them round around the corner all the time. Now, there is not really a better conditioned pack in the world than the Springbok one. So it's a real challenge, but it's one of those things
but
that...
you also have that pack coming off the bench as well.
Yeah.
They're almost impossible to tire out because you have 5 of the players being replaced instantly, plus a 6th by a centre.
Yeah, so they are going high stakes in terms of their game plan, I imagine anyway, in terms of just getting their forwards to outwork the South Africans. What do you think of that Le Garrec selection?
Yeah. So I think there's a few angles on this. One, I am surprised because I think Luke has been exceptional all year. I want to come back to something in Six Nations Full Contact, the documentary series. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember when they made that documentary series and it's just a lot of Louis Rees putting his shoes on and stuff? When selecting Le Garrec for his first start for France, Galtier said something repeatedly. There was a word he used repeatedly. I don't know if it's just the translation of the subtitle saying this, but he kept using the word freshness. He said, I put him in because I felt this team needed freshness. And he was like, we don't need to raise the same level of performance. We need someone who will come in and do something that we don't expect. And I wonder if that is the thinking here. Because Nolan Le Garrec came in for that game against Wales and threw this ridiculous out-the-back pass.
I will add, I think people expect that of him now, because he does it all the time.
But this is the thing, is Lucu is bald and kind of boring, but brilliant at it.
Yeah.
Like, he is one of the best box kickers in the world, one of the best management kind of nines in the world, has a brilliant kind of knack for decision-making. As I say, his pass isn't necessarily as good as Le Garrec or Dupont, but he is still a brilliant passer of the ball, gets the ball into space, spots things on, and thinks about the game, controls the game, right? Like, you don't watch a game when Maxime Lucu is playing and go, I didn't notice that bald guy.
Yeah.
You know, you're going like, oh, he was bossing it the entire game. That is the thing he brings, right? He spent years playing the Pro Data. He's worked his way up. This is his dream. He spent a long time thinking it wouldn't happen, and he is taking it by the scruff of the neck. And he's lucky that he's got probably the greatest player of all time ahead of him, and he's got that chance, but not right now. So, Le Garrec, on the other hand, is someone who will come in and give you a spark of magic. And if you think about these two players, right, how do you get the best out of two exceptional scrum halves? Le Garrec is one of the most talented scrum halves in the world.
Yeah.
You know, if you take Dupont out of the equation, how many scrum halves are there more like raw talent level?
Dupont's like these two scrum halves merged into one, isn't he? So
with extra stuff.
With extra stuff.
Like,
but
he's these two merged into one, and also Marnonu is merged in as well.
Yeah.
And Richie McCaw.
But as you say, if you look at human scrum halves.
Yeah. So there's very few scrum halves in the world who are more talented, raw than Le Garrec. His eye for a gap is exceptional. He's incredibly quick. Incredible knack for being able to get away passes you don't think should be possible. And so how do you get the best out of him and out of Lucu? It is you start Le Garrec, you give him 50-odd minutes, then you bring Lucu on to boss the game, which you presume will be tight in the closing stages. The dying minutes of the Champions Cup final, which is the biggest game his club had ever played. And he was absolutely brilliant. The way in which he took the game by the scruff of the neck right as Northampton started to get some momentum again, and he shut things down. He box kicked the lever off it. He screamed at everyone. He was like...
He was the captain. He was in charge.
In scrums. Yeah, he was just like all over the game. Like, it was him, right? And he was rightly named player of the match then, like, as he was feeding a scrum that he'd won himself through pressure he'd put on. And then you look at a few weeks later, the top 14 final. That comes down to the 80th minute, and Maxime Lucu nails a penalty in overtime to take it to extra time and take his club, again, to one of the biggest games in the history in extra time, and was brilliant. So you want that guy on the pitch in the final minutes, where you want Le Garrec to have a chance to do something unexpected whilst the game is perhaps a bit looser. And a lot of games get looser as the game goes on. I think this is going to be the opposite.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a game that's pretty open in the first half that gets really cagey in the last 20 minutes, half an hour.
It's so funny because technically his opposite man is Grant Williams, but actually the guy I'd pit him against is Marnie Libbok, who is in that 23 jersey of South Africa. And that's, again, a real dice roll by Rossi there to throw Libbok in. And Libbok's a great player, but as we saw against Argentina last year, he maybe isn't that clutch player like Andre Pollard is. However, obviously anyone who watches Marnie Libbok play at club level knows he can just open up a game like that. He can just decide at a certain point, I'm going to put in this absolutely beautiful kick pass that is on the money, like inch perfect, that will change a game. And that's the thing with Libbok is, and they don't have to put him on if they don't think he's the kind of game that suits him. With Sasha Feinberg-Mngomezulu starting at 10, which I think is a really interesting call. And I like that they're giving it a go because I think he's had a really positive start to international rugby. I say start, he's been playing for just over a year now. But I think this is a really different test to a lot of the ones he's had so far, where he will probably be tested in terms of his game management a little bit.
Sasha was on that tour in 2022.
Yeah.
He went as a kind of apprentice, played against Bristol in the Young Cap game. He was there. He was around the squad, right? So he's been brought through very steadily over the last few years. He has been and seen them play France up close. And this is his chance to step up. I think it's very easy to look at this and go, okay, they've picked Sasha over Andre or over Marnie. I'm on first names with all of them. I know more personally. And think, because of that, right, okay, Andre Pollard is the stationary, experienced, clutch guy who kicks the lever off it, tackles everything, loves a crash ball himself. So therefore, Sasha must be the exciting young up-and-coming
maverick.
thing, because we know he can do it, because we've seen his highlights reel, right? But he's so much more than that. He is so capable of running and managing a game.
Definitely.
And I think sometimes he has this knack, and he's still overcoming it. He's grown a lot over the last year, but it's still something he's working on, of putting too much on himself, right, in terms of that game management. And sometimes he does need to go to the players alongside him, whether it's a Jesse Creel or whether it's
Corbus Reinach.
Or, you know, any of the players coming off the
Damian
bench.
Willemse.
Willemse's like the key one here, right? It's like sometimes he needs to trust Willemse or someone to go, you take over right now, right? Or
you slide
if Willemse
out
has
one
an idea,
position.
he isn't going like, you know, if Willemse spot a space in the back, right? He lets Willemse go for it rather than going for himself, which has often been like Sasha's one error in his game, right? I think right now he is like 90-odd% of like the player you want him to be.
Being a control freak at 10 isn't a bad thing.
I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just like learning to manage that and manage
Especially when you've got
him.
his skill set. And he can whack the ball 60, 70 metres downfield. He's one of those players who can genuinely kick like 22 to 22. His boot is massive. And I think this will be the real test of when he uses that and whether it's the right thing, because France are a team who love to kick long and they love to keep the ball on the park. And the interesting thing about that is that then links into the South African back three, that you have Damian Willemse, you have Kurtley Arendse and Cheslin Colby. You do not want to kick loosely to any of those three, the back three players. And like Damien Penaud has this occasional habit of he'll chase after a kick and then he'll get to the tackle scenario and you go, it's all right, you can go.
He does what he wants, Damien Penaud.
He does.
He just doesn't bother.
And when you're playing at somebody like Cheslin Colby, you can't afford for something like that to happen. The other thing about Sasha Feinberg-Mngomezulu, though, is obviously, as you say, he takes a lot on himself. And that also works in attack, that he likes to take the ball in quite a lot. And the thing about France and the way they like to defend is they really go after the breakdown. They will contain you first phase, and they will hammer you in the breakdown. You look at Mikael Guillard playing number 8, he was brilliant there in the summer. Paul Boudon playing 7, and Anthony Gelonche playing at 6. That is a back row who will hammer the breakdown hard. Also, Hugo Marchand playing 2. He also loves to go after the breakdown. So, with that in mind, Sasha Feinberg-Mngomezulu, he likes to take the ball in himself, which naturally will conflate his turnovers conceded stats. So in last season in the URC, he conceded 21 turnovers, which I think was joint of any
top
of the...
with Josh Ioane of Connacht.
of any fly half
Any fly
in
half,
the URC.
any regular side fly half,
Yeah, and so granted, as I say, that is slightly conflated by the fact that he runs more than, let's say, Jack Crowley or Sam Prendergast, who will have lower stats than him. But that's still something France will look out for. It's something that they may look to do is fly up on the outside to try and force him back in. And it is a fact of rugby that if you catch the ball from this side as a first receiver and carry it back towards the breakdown, as Sasha likes to do, he has that really good kind of inside step. and he has a 49% evasion rate in the ORC, which is insanely high. That is Damien Penaud levels of evasion, right? But if you carry that back on the inside, you're more likely to get chopped, and you're going back towards where all of their jackal threats are, where the heavy players are. And so you could be looking at someone like a Manamiafu getting his hands on that ball and being really difficult to clear out, especially because you're going back towards players who might need to double ruck, rather than playing to your system where people are in the 1-3-2-2 or the 1-3-3-1 or whatever it is. People have an assigned ruck that they know they're going to hit, whereas at that point you have to improvise and play off the cuff a little bit.
It's worth saying, I don't mean any of this as criticism of Sasha
No, because
he is phenomenal.
He is more likely to break the line.
We know what he can do with the ball.
Yeah.
We know what he can do in terms of putting other people in space as well as himself.
Yeah.
And this is the acid test of every other part of his game. There are parts of his game that weren't tested in that performance against Argentina, right, when he was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And he was able to play his natural game and the things he's best at. I think he's a complete and rounded rugby player.
100% he is.
There are odd moments of him making decisions that perhaps could be better.
Yeah.
But very rarely are they mistakes.
He's so worth it,
decisions, though. Right? It's like
the moments of magic are so worth the occasional turnover he concedes.
Yeah. It's not that he makes mistakes. It's not that he's making bad decisions. It's that there's occasional decisions he makes that give the opposition chances to do something, right? And you don't want to do that against France. So this is the game for him to prove and to step up to the next level. And I'm really excited to see how it goes, because it feels like this game is made for one of two things, right? Either it's France to put a claim down and go, we are the best team in the world at the minute. We view ourselves as that. We want to be that. We're coming for the next World Cup. Or it's for Sasha to have the game where he goes, I'm the man.
Yeah.
Dupont is injured right now.
Give me that crown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am the key talent now, at least for a month until Antoine rocks up in Perpignan again.
Sure.
I don't know why I'm assuming he'll be Perpignan away he's going to play, and I haven't checked Toulouse's fixture list. But this feels like this will be the game where Sasha crowns himself almost.
Yeah.
I mean, South Africa and France are two of the top three in the world, right? I think New Zealand are also there or thereabouts, but I think these are probably the two best teams in the world. So it's a real chance to lay down a marker.
Yeah. I think there's a weird rivalry that's been extenuated by all of the chat around Dupont being the best in the world.
Yep.
And a lot of South Africans, because their team has been the best in the world for the best part of a decade now, basically, since the end of that All Blacks era of 2015. They want that individual to take that crown. And Sasha, as the young maverick and the exciting young player, is a player that I think a lot of people want to lean on to be that. And obviously, as rugby fans, we love that because he is such a brilliant talent. However, you mentioned Dupont's injury.
Yeah.
There's one other guy. So Gregory Aldry is out.
Yes.
And we mentioned a minute ago that Mikael Guillard, who played the Six Nations as a second row, then moved to number 8, scratched a few heads over that in the summer, and then was outstanding against the All Blacks. Talk to me about him.
I rate Mikael Guillard unbelievably highly. I don't know if there's many players, he's 23 years old, I don't know if there's many players his age better than him in the world, right? He's like a year younger than Sasha, so Sasha's qualified to the next group up. But he is phenomenal. As a complete all-court rugby player, the size and shape of him, he is one of very few players, and the majority are also South African, who are so good at using their frame. He is enormous, but he's also a brilliant ball carrier, has that like Rob Valentini-esque knack for the way he carries and the way he hits angles, and he never relies on his own size to carry. He carries like a man half his size, and yet he is twice the size of that, and so makes so much yardage, is a brilliant finisher, which goes under the radar a little bit, but like, is really good at actually like the art of getting the ball down.
Central of gravity, isn't it?
Yeah. Tight carries, coming on, doing that, but also phenomenal at the breakdown.
Yeah.
I kind of think it's his biggest strength. Because he's so broad, he's built like a boulder, like he can just get over the ball and just wrap it up and just be like locked on. Like it's so difficult to shift him because you can't wrap around his shoulders because he's so broad.
He's Lego brick shaped, isn't he?
Yeah. Like I remember seeing, being at the Swansea.com for the Ospreys against Lyon. Lyon brought him on at half-time and he won player of the match. It was inarguable. Like everyone you talked to was like that Lyon second row they put off the bench. Like he single-handedly won the game.
Yeah.
And like I've never quite seen anything like it. Like the manner in which he turned a game single-handedly. And you had, like any number of like Justin Tipperick, Jack Morgan, any number of great players, Adam Beard, playing in that game on the opposition side. And he single-handedly came on and just blew them off the park.
Yeah.
He looked like he was playing from like 5 divisions up.
Yeah. Brilliant lineup forward as well.
Yeah.
Really flies under the
size
radar
as well,
times.
Yeah. And France have gone for a huge pack, right? They've gone for possibly the biggest Other than, you could maybe take Flamont out and put Talfa Fanua in.
And I guess Grow potentially off who's on the bench, but tactically.
But you want a line-out jumper, so Flamont's in there to run the line-out. Otherwise, it's pretty much their biggest pack they could possibly pick because they know what's coming in South Africa and they know how to deal with it, which is mass moves mass, so put more mass in, and the mass can't move the mass.
Yeah.
Like, Nicola Mass probably came up with this strategy, who is Perpignan scrum coach, so Antoine Dupont will come to know him very soon.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by France's selection, the way they've gone so big. South Africa's feels like what we expected, broadly. It's a very, very good team with a lot of very, very good players. Damien Willems has been playing some of his best rugby of his career this year. So brilliant. It's to see how he goes in a game like this. He was playing at 10 last time when they played in 2022. And maybe this is a hot take. I really don't think he's a 10. I really don't like him as a 10. I think he is kind of I
think in the Springboks system, he's better used out wide.
I don't think he suits the Springboks system as a 10. Put it that way.
You want to give him a bit more space to run in, don't you? I think that really suits him. Yeah.
So, it's an intriguing one. Do you think there's a world in which this game is decided by more than 7 points?
There's a world in which that happens, obviously, because both of these teams are capable of springing something wild and unexpected. But I think it's highly unlikely. I think we are looking at a point where it will be a moment of magic where Marnie Libbok comes on and executes a pinpoint crossfield kick, or there's a brilliant South African maul from 25 metres out, like England had against Australia last week, or like Maxime Lucu comes on and gets a clutch kick, or Ramot does the same thing. Any of the above feel equally possible. Louis Biel-Biarré is playing, and we've not mentioned him. He's starting on the left wing. Anything can happen in the French's favour when he's playing, and he has the capability of putting the ball on his foot and running after it.
I would disagree on I think it's going to be won by a moment of magic.
Yeah?
I think it's going to be moments of magic repeatedly for the first 50-odd minutes, and then it will settle down. And I think it'll be incredibly cagey and incredibly tight for the end. And it'll come down to attrition, right? And it'll probably be, can Maxime Lucu out-Maxime Lucu, this Springbok team who was so good at that? And I think Rassie has gambled on, if we go with a bench who are more likely to up the pace, can we catch France off guard if they're trying to play that game?
Yeah.
And my gut feeling is you may see some of the South African players, or the bulk you don't have to bring on again any of these, or Grant Williams, but like those are halfbacks you select on the bench if you are expecting the game to open up as it goes on.
Yeah.
And I think it's not going.
Or if you want to open it back up when it's become more attritional and cagey.
So I think that's what they're gambling on. I wonder whether it will happen. And my gut feeling is it won't, and that would favour France. But also, it very well could. It very well could for 1 second. And that could be Grant Williams sneaking through.
It's quite interesting. We've called basically the same thing to happen in the opposite order to each other, which I quite like there. Okay, 2 final questions.
Yep.
Which position, name me a number from 1 to 15, is Andre Esterhuizen going to come off the bench at?
6.
6. And which minute from 1 to 80 is Nolan Garrett going to throw his reverse pass in?
18.